Hello everyone and welcome to an RNG video. RNG, random numbers. We'll be talking about something that's actually very controversial and something that's actually very fun to talk about. In this particular video, we will be looking at the randomness in games. We'll be looking at the randomness or the nature of randomness in item drops in particular video games. We will be considering the fact that there are positives and negatives. Nothing is perfect. We have to understand that particularly. And item drops in games pretty much are supposed to be, or the purpose of it is supposed to be, rewarding the player, giving the player an incentive to do something. And when they do something, you're like, here, have this. You deserve it. For the amount of work. You know, when you put in all kinds of work, the game devs are like, yo man, you see you over there, man, here's a little something. But it depends really. Even though we understand the general purpose of item drops, you have to understand that some systems just don't work as good as they are supposed to work. And some systems actually do a fantastic job at doing these things. So these are the nitpicks or the small little details that drive people crazy when it comes to item drops. You have to understand that most of these item drops in games, depending on whether you personally care about playing any video games. I mean, you know, if you don't care about video games, I don't even know why you are watching this video right now. But anyway, stick with me. Just hold on a second. You have to understand that item drops can, you know, the sensation, that reward you get can feel so good. Sometimes it can feel great, could feel better than life itself, and be mind blown. Like, oh! You know, you got this thing that's like, but you have to understand that sometimes the item drop systems and how they work can be just maddening and just pretty much you'll be making the same sound, you'll be like, and you're not getting what you're wanting, and it's just annoying. So we'll be looking at the random systems in games, or the random number generators in games, and how they imply these different systems of item drops. Let's just place a small little disclaimer right now. We have to understand that there is no best item drop system. I know that might be far-fetched, but to be honest, personally, that's how I believe. There is no best item drop system. Every system is subject to some form of criticism, and no systems are perfect. We have to understand that, hence why people continue to try improve on their games. If everything was perfect, there'd be no need for new games. It would just, you know what I mean? It just wouldn't work that way. So now we need to evaluate. Must have a mission. What's the purpose of me sitting here recording this video alone in my apartment? My neighbors are probably listening through the wall being like, oh, why is this guy talking to himself? But it's a mission. They don't understand. It's a top secret mission. We're about to infiltrate the base of randomness, and pretty much we have to evaluate everything that we're going to look at based on the context of the game. We have to understand how these item drops, or the acquisition of these item drops, is related to the gameplay mechanics of the game. We have to understand what these gameplay mechanics are, and how these random acquisition rates are implied, or the context of these acquisition rates in regards to the audience of the targeted game, or the targeted audience of the game. You know what I mean? Certain audiences respond to certain different types of stimuli, different ways of implementing item drops in different games, whether the games be for children, adults, men, women, alien, human, sun, earth, whatever, galaxies, doesn't matter. There's a set audience for every game. And every item drop system has to cater for the specific audience. Everyone thinks differently and will respond differently to different stimuli that you give them. We have to understand that, so we'll be looking at the positives and negatives and the context. Personally, for me, I would like to talk to you guys in regards of MMORPGs/RPGs/MMOs, because personally these are the games that I personally believe use these games, these systems extensively within their games. And just one one last disclaimer before we get straight to it. The games I'm gonna use as examples are not the best, greatest, exemplary, or worst games or worst examples of these item drop systems, but instead they're just starting points of discussions and games that I've had some experience. Maybe more people have more experience than me in these said games, but hey, it's something I know a little bit of, and it's something that interests me, so it's just a starting point of discussion. Do not get hurt if I say something that you don't like to hear, and of course if I say anything wrong, feel free to correct me. So let's get started. Now, if you want to earn yourself 25 points, I'm gonna ask you a question and you're gonna guess the answer. Is that a deal? Are we good? Are we good? Alright, let's go. I'm going to use one particular game as my first example for random drops. What do you think that game is? I'll give you 2 hints. The first letter is a F, the last letter is a Y, and the last number is a 9. I'll give you a moment to think about it. Give me an answer in 3, 2, 1. You got it? That's good. If you guessed Final Fantasy 9, I don't know if I even spelled the letter number thing correctly, but anyway, if you guessed Final Fantasy 9, then I think we're thinking along the same line, and do you know what they say? Great minds think alike. So you're great too. You're great? Clap hands for yourself, man. Final Fantasy 9. Someone might be wondering, like, why would you use Final Fantasy 9 as like your first example for item drops? The item drop system is so simple, it's so easy to understand. True. That may be true. But for my first example, I actually want to use Final Fantasy 9 for one particular reason. The Excalibur 2. Literally, the Excalibur as a weapon, and the Excalibur 2 in this particular case, is a reoccurring weapon that Final Fantasy or Squaresoft and Square Enix now has been reusing within their games, and it's supposed to be a sword of power. It's, statistically speaking, it is one of the most powerful swords in every reincarnation of a Final Fantasy game. That's actually something that I like. It's something I've noticed most Japanese developers do, is they reuse some old material. Check out From Software as a clear-cut example of what we call reusing some old materials in new ways that get your mind blown. Look at the Moonlight Greatsword. But anyway, I digress. Moving back, the Excalibur 2, really one of the most powerful weapons in Final Fantasy 9, if not the most powerful. Easily can deal 9,999 without even having extremely high levels, and it's just a really good sword. So people might be wondering, how does it fit in this RNG item drop? Well, actually it kind of doesn't and it kind of does. Technically speaking, if I were to be blatantly honest with you, the acquisition rate of the Excalibur 2 is 100%. Forget that. The drop rate of the Excalibur 2 is over 100%. There is no way you cannot get the Excalibur 2. So someone might say to me, then that's a probability of 1. There's no chance you won't get it, so it's not random. It's obvious you'll get Excalibur 2 in the game. And whoever's saying that, I'll tell you straight, plain and simple, you are correct. You will get the Excalibur 2 no matter what. You'll just get the game. It's 100% drop rate. And this particular weapon, like I said, is extremely powerful. It can easily deal max damage even with low stats or certain stats, perfect stats. And personally, this weapon breaks the difficulty curve of the game. It's literally takes all the stimuli used to make the game challenging and progressively difficult or organically difficult, and just throws that curve straight out the window, and it's pretty much easy mode after that. So Now to answer the person asking me why this particular 100% drop rate weapon, the Excalibur 2, is part of the RNG, the random number generator system that we're talking about. The problem is, to get the Excalibur 2, you must get to the final dungeon and confront and kill the Lich boss within 12 hours. 12 hours. Just to give you an example of why this is so not ridiculously hard to do, but ridiculously hard to do. Consider this, Final Fantasy IX, even though back then we're still using CD-ROM, had 4 discs, and the game had hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of content within one new game or within one run. So now to be able to speed run the game that is meant to be played over tens if not hundreds of hours, well, not many hundreds but some hundreds of hours, how can you do it in 12? It's very hard. Now people will be still like, how and why is this still considered a RNG drop? It's a matter of speed running the game. Now, as people who understand speedruns, I'm assuming we all do here, especially speedruns within a game like Final Fantasy or within an RPG that has random encounters, random item drops, random experience gains in terms of how much experience a particular enemy will give you at any particular time can vary as well. How much damage you deal based on your stats and enemy defenses can vary as well. There's so many different random elements within this one particular speedrun of 12 hours, which is also ridiculously hard to do, that will factor into whether will you actually get Excalibur or will you not. Now if you look at it from that point of view, then you can argue that Excalibur has a 50% acquisition rate. It's either you'll have the perfect save and obtain the weapon, or you will not have the perfect save and fall short on time and just fail, and you will not beat Lich in 12 hours, and you won't pass all 4 discs and all phases of the game and get the weapon. So if you look at it from that point of view, it is definitely not a 100% drop, because it is based on skill and the hand or the cards that the game deals you as you go throughout the game trying to speedrun it. Because picture it like this, before we even go further within this discussion about Excalibur 2, just imagine you need a certain item to progress within one particular level for you to continue the speedrun. If this item doesn't drop, then how exactly are you going to get it? How are you going to progress if this one thing doesn't drop from a specific enemy you're farming within this 12-hour speedrun? That's probability, that there's a certain chance it might not happen, and if it doesn't happen, chances are you might not get Excalibur. Just throwing that out there. Weapon breaks the game. Weapon is overpowered. Weapon does buttloads of damage. But weapon requires you to be a pro at the game. Now we have to consider then, okay, this weapon, this 100% drop rate weapon, which is not actually so 100%, like why is it so elitist? Like why is this elitist weapon in the game anyway? Like, oh, most people who are watching this video probably don't even know the existence of the Excalibur 2 or never found the Excalibur 2 on their first run. Just before we even continue on that trail of thought, chances are, here's the probability of getting Excalibur 2. If you, back in the day, when in the year 2000, I believe I was about 7 years old. Picture a 7-year-old kid. If the 7-year-old kid bought, or my parents bought Final Fantasy IX, I inserted Final Fantasy IX into the PlayStation, played the game, had a perfect run of the game, and managed to beat Lich with the correct items, stats, and experience gains within this first playthrough, and got Excalibur 2 in that same time period, I have better chances, or even everyone watching has better chances of dying this year than that happening. Literally, the chances of you dying in this coming year, are literally way higher than the chances of that happening. So this game, or this weapon, was a really big secret for completionists. That's all it was. It was a weapon built into the game to reward players who have intensively studied the game and mastered it. It was a big reward, but it was a reward that was not even needed to complete the game. You could easily reach max damage if you just grinded enough levels and leveled up in the right spots and got the right amount of experience. It was actually very possible. You did not need Excalibur. So someone might be face-palming themselves like, oh man, like, oh, I put in so much work, so many years trying to perfect the speedrun, and I got Excalibur too, but I mean, Steiner can still deal 9,999 with Ragnarok. What's the point? Well, like I said, as a developer, it's actually I'm not a developer, but in the eyes of a developer, it would actually be very charming, it's very heartwarming to see people play your game and look through the cosmetics, to look through the systems and analyze the systems and understand what you understand as a developer. When people go into your game and want to study your game and make it a part of their lives, that's actually quite heartwarming. And Excalibur 2 is an embodiment of a gift to players, Final Fantasy IX players. Like, here's this weapon. This weapon is extremely hard to get. It's extremely hard to get, but getting it shows that you really put enough time and effort into this game. And it shows that you actually like the work. You actually like the work I have done for you. So it's quite controversial. You put people through trials and tribulations to show them how much you care for them and how they care for your game. It's actually quite funny. Now, people may be wondering then, what is this perfect run? Why do you call these things perfect runs or perfect stats? Well, there's nothing actually perfect about the run needed or the 12 hours needed to get the Excalibur, because like I said, nothing is perfect in life. But there are terms that were used to understand or to categorize this particular run because it was a secret speed run within Final Fantasy IX with a secret gift. Now, what a perfect save generally is from a point of view is this. First of all, Zidane needs the Mage Masher. The Mage Masher is a weapon or a dagger that Zidane's able to use, and it's got a silence ability, a silence passive for fighting. It does bonus damage towards mages, hence why it is called a Mage Masher. Mashes them apart. So that's one thing, but the problem is the most effective or the most fastest way to go through all 4 discs, there's a specific route you have to take. The Mage Masher can be bought from many different cities. You can buy it in Dali, you can buy it in Limburg, you can buy it in Treno, you can buy it in the Black Mage Village and a couple of other places. But you have to understand that these cities, you visit them at different times within different parts of each of the discs, and they are out of the path of the speedrun. So if you go to those cities, you are actually taking a very large detour out of the speedrun, which could set you over the 12-hour limit that you've been given. So people might be asking then, how does Zidane get the Mage Masher? Like you said, it's the first integral part of a perfect save or a perfect run. How do we get the Mage Masher? And the answer is quite simple. The Masked Man. Now, people might be wondering, what is the Masked Man? The Masked Man, my word, it's really hard to say. The Masked Man. Ugh. It's like SK just disappear out of that word. Anyway, the Masked Man is a boss fight that you will fight in the beginning of the game, somewhat in the first disc. Now, people might be asking, do you just kill the Masked Man and get the Mage Masher as part of the item drops that he gives you? No, actually what you need to do is, since Zidane is a thief class hero or the thief class character within the game, you should use the ability Steal. And Steal, like every other game, is a chance to loot an enemy you're fighting for a specific item. In this case, the Masked Man has the Mage Masher, but you have to understand that the Mage Masher is a very rare drop from the Masked Man. So you might not even be able to steal it even if you sat there for hours taking countless amounts of damage from the guy not attacking him, not wanting to kill him, because they're still trying to steal and get the Mage Masher. So random drop already. There's a chance that you might not even be able to get the Mage Masher. And then if that wasn't enough, part of the perfect save is that you need to know, out of all the characters that you'll encounter and all the characters that will join your party, you now need to know which of those characters you want to level up, because you have to understand that the experience that you get per fight is not distributed to all heroes. It's only distributed to the heroes that were present within the fight or within the party that fought the battle or the random encounter, and this is the case throughout the entire game. So now you need to know of all the characters you're gonna get and when exactly you're gonna get these characters, who you want to have the experience. So most of the time you'll be running away from fights because you know that the current party you have or consist of doesn't have the right person or the right people that you want to gain experience and levels. You also need to know how much gold you need to buy certain pieces of armor as you go from disc and skipping phases. You'll skip a lot of phases because you'll be speed running around most places that were usually the general progression path. And random amounts of gold are determined, of course, by which enemies you are able to fight. The game has random encounters. You do not choose who you want to fight, so as you're speed running through a particular path, you might not fight the monsters that you wanted to fight in the first place for the specific amount of experience and gil or gold that you needed within the Final Fantasy speedrun. Final Fantasy 9. It's quite this run is difficult. People have done it. It's not impossible. It's actually it's far from impossible. But for a normal person like me who played the game I only finished Final Fantasy 9 back then when I was 7 years old, about twice. That was it. Never even knew Excalibur 2 existed. But for those who are trying to do so, it will require a lot of dedication and a lot of practice. Because like I said, Excalibur breaks the difficulty curve. The game literally just becomes easy mode as you blow everything up with Excalibur. And like I said, since you'll be regulating which experience and which gold goes to which characters that you have in your party, and which equipment you can buy is regulated by the gold you got, which can also be random. By the time you get Excalibur, you should have a set quota of levels on the heroes that you want. Hence, you have to understand that Steiner the Knight is the one who can only wield Excalibur. It will give him 3 potential abilities that he can learn, which is Clim Hazards and 2 others that I've forgotten. Sorry for that because it's been so long. But anyway, Steiner holds the weapon, and when you reach this particular point, giving him the right amount of experience without having to grind for extra levels to progress through the speedrun, you'll reach what is called perfect stats. And what perfect stats is really is just a maximization of the potential of Excalibur 2. When you reach this particular level, you'll be able to deal 9,999 without having to grind like what I did, not speedrunning the game. I used to just sit down, grind and enjoy the game, put on some music, kill some monsters, get gold, get levels, and just over level. And then I'll deal 9,999 damage with almost every weapon I could use. But in this case, you maximize on your time and your levels, and you will get the full Excalibur 2 feeling, or the full Excalibur 2 oomph. But anyway, I digress. Now people might be wondering, okay, step 1 complete. I've got the Mage Masher. I beat the Masked Man. We're still on the right path. I've got the amount of gold that I've been I've faced all the random encounters that were correct for this to make the speedrun possible. You know, I've got good amounts of gold. I know which armor I'm going to buy as we progress from disc to disc to disc. I've got enough experience on some of the right heroes that I have. What other challenges are there? What's so random about the speedrun from here? Well, I'm going to put it like this. There are certain items in the game that will drop that will need, well, these items being potions, healing potions, you name it, accessories, bangles, and armors. And we have to understand that each item in the game, whether it be a weapon, accessory, a piece of armor, has the chance to for you to learn set abilities. Like for example, a bangle could have the spell fire, and if you equip the bangle you'll be able to use fire, and then after gaining a certain amount of experience you will permanently learn this and you can unequip the bangle. And of course item stack, which is actually quite amazing, which I was like, this gameplay system mechanic of Final Fantasy IX is actually quite amazing. So you can put like a bangle and a sword that make you learn fire, and then you learn twice as fast, as an example. But anyway, there are certain items. We agreed that these could be potions, elixirs, bangles, accessories, pieces of armor, weapons, like the Mage Masher. Now there are certain key items, keys to certain doors, keys to certain chests, keys to certain progression paths within the game that you need to get. Also, you have to understand that there are certain other things that are story related that are needed to progress the game. Now, since you're speedrunning, you will be dodging certain areas of the game. Now, if you do not know your run through and through, you risk missing a particular key item. Now, let's just say this key item is meant to be used in disc 3, but you obtain it in disc 1. If you miss this key item, guess what? You cannot go back from disc 3 to disc 1 content, because there are certain events within the Final Fantasy IX story that change the environment, like disasters or whatever story-based things that will happen that will not allow you to go back to that same space that had a particular key item. So once you miss it for good, and guess what? You cannot continue the Excalibur run, because the said path that you need to unlock is going to be locked for the entire playthrough. It's mind-blowing. There's a lot of information about an Excalibur 2 run on the internet right now, and you honestly need to check it out. So the guy is sitting there. He's got his hands on his head, ripping the hair off. It's like, oh, okay, I've done everything you said. What's the final randomness? What's so random about the last step? Tell me what's the last step. The last step is not so random, actually. This is one of the only things about this particular run which you can get with certainty. There are 4 battles in the particular course of this perfect run that you will need to gain specific amounts of experience from on specific characters. There are 4 battles. There are 3 battles that are fought in Pandemonium, and there's one fought in Tantarian. In these particular fights, you need to make sure that your party consists of the people you beat the final dungeon with. The people who fight Lich need to be in these 4 particular fights. At least you can control that. You can, at least you can go to the menu and switch out party members. At least this is the one thing that if you know and you've practiced the run, at least this will be the one easy part. 3 battles in Pandemonium, 1 in another place. You need to change the party members according to what the fight is going to be. And then you get the experience that you need, and hopefully this will let you get perfect stats. But even though this is so like, oh, it's so mind-blowing, like I said, you do not need, I finished the game without Excalibur 2, I managed to maximize on damage, it just required a lot more work, and it was still fun. This is just a secret item for completionists, that's all it is. You do not need it. That's pretty much all it is. I mean, it's not as if Excalibur 2 was put there as a progression path, like if you cannot obtain Excalibur 2, you cannot continue. I mean, who would ever want a game who would ever want to play a game whereby item drops determine your progression in the game? I mean, like, if you don't have this item, you can't continue the quest. Who would want to play that? Oh shit, I forgot. World of Warcraft. This is a game where sometimes you can't even actually proceed the quest, or you cannot proceed the story of the game without obtaining a specific item drop from whether it be foe or a collectible somewhere that spawns at a particular time. You cannot proceed the game or the story until you get that thing. And I mean, the game, to be honest with you, World of Warcraft is not really all that famous. I mean, it's got over 10 million people playing this game, sweating it out every single day of their lives, paying $15 a month. So I think you understand the magnitude of this game. But let's look at some of the basics. Let's just assume you're a player. You just started playing World of Warcraft. Everything's all good. Everything's fine. It's all fine and dandy. Then you go to an NPC. You get a quest. The quest is very simple. Collect an X amount of Y from enemy type Z. So they give you the general location on the map. At least you know that's simple. You just look at the map. I'm like, okay, this is the general area where I'm supposed to find enemy Z. I'm gonna collect X amount of particle or item Z. It's quite simple. So you get there, you start slaying this thing, collecting X amount of Y, and you start the jiggling. You just jiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Next thing you know, you might have the item, but generally those are just the basics. You get a quest. A quest has rules or regulations. Get this amount of that from there, and then bring it back to the quest giver. And then people might be like, well, so what? One thing you have to understand is, if you do not collect X amount of Y, you can't continue that quest line anymore. For every single quest line in the game, if you do not fulfill the conditions, you can't just say end mission, go next. You cannot do that. There is no end mission, go next button. You have to fulfill the quest. You must get that item drop. Each item drop has the possibility to be there or not, whether you get it or not, for killing a specific enemy, or whether the spawn will appear or not on the particular time of playing. It's all random, and it's all regulated by, of course, the developers. Now people might be sitting there like, World of Warcraft, screw the story, I don't give a damn about the story, just abandon the story and continue playing the game. That is true, you can do that, but that means you will not get the necessary experience, you will not get the necessary items or the necessary gold that you were supposed to have been given within this particular period to be effective later on in the game. Think about it like this: in the beginning of the game you pick a class, and then they put you in the starting area of your race and your class, and they give you menial tasks like go collect this weapon, for example, go collect these crafting items, and then when you bring back these crafting items, the person who gives you the quest takes these crafting items. Of course, you'd have gotten experience for killing the things that gave you these crafting items, first of all, so you level up, and then you take these crafting items, you give them back, and then you're rewarded with the weapon. Now, if you skip that, you'll be all there running around with default weapons that don't do as much damage as the potential weapon you'd have been given for completing your first quest as a reward for actually learning the game. The problem that people need to understand is that item drops are there to reward you for doing the right things, doing the things that the developers have intended for you to do. So if you're not following their rules and regulations, chances are you'll either have to find and abuse another way around to get that item, or you just simply do not get the item. Now, people have to understand that the original idea behind this particular item drop system, or this quest and item drop system, was that the developers had a general idea that chances are players will go about any particular area and accept a large amount of quests at one particular time, and most players, just through playing the game, going from quest to quest to quest to quest to quest, chances are you would get the particular items and the particular resources and experience that you need over time. Or the unlucky players who do not get the item drops will just average out over time due to pure statistics. It's like, in this particular month I had like 20 quests, but I only got like 5 drops out of 20. By next month, hopefully all the people who I was playing with who were doing the quests that I was doing would move on, and then I have more room to work by myself. And then, like I said, over time, due to pure statistics, your item drop discovery will just level up and average out over time. But the problem is, this isn't actually what would happen. It's not like players would just accept a billion quests and just move on when everything goes sour and hopefully come back later and get lucky. The problem is that there are stubborn players, personally like myself, who are stubborn with the quest. The thing is, what the game teaches you is that quests are meant to be finished. Even in most quest-driven games, and even in real life to some degree, once you commit to a particular objective in your life, chances are you want to complete that objective. You're not just gonna leave it there floating about saying, it's just not working out right now. Whatever, this objective doesn't really matter to me anymore. We're just gonna move on. End quest, go next. No, that's just not how it works. The game is teaching players from the very onset that quests are given to reward you for doing them correctly, and quests are made to be finished to progress the storyline. Now that's a direct contradiction of a game's ideal design. That's just going against it totally, and that's why the drop system in this particular part is just so it's just so frustrating, man. Now let me just give you one personal example for me that I encountered when I first started playing World of Warcraft with a bunch of friends. I always understood that World of Warcraft was a game, like I knew it existed throughout my entire life, I just didn't play it. So recently I was like, wow, well, my friend really wants me to play it, so let's just get a whole bunch of people in it and let's just have fun. Let's play the free trial and play the first 20 levels and just have a good blast. Now the problem is we encountered one quest. We were moving as a group of 5. We had one quest where we were supposed to collect a set amount of armaments, 8 out of 8 to be exact. Now the problem is these armaments spawn within one particular location, which is I forgot the village's name. I am sorry, I'm not a Warcraft fanatic, but anyway. We go to this place. The area is relatively small. There are 8 crates littered around this particular spot. These 8 crates have a spawn timer or have smart respawn timers. Now the problem is, if one person in the group of 5 collects the crate, it's not like everyone in the group now has 1 crate out of 8 collected. No, that one person has that 1 crate. Now that means as soon as we got there, we started running around like headless chickens, like, oh damn it, I need to get all the crates quick before someone else gets them. Now one thing you have to understand is, I said in the beginning, over 10 million people play this game. Fair and fine, not all 10 million are doing that one quest. But you better know we were not the only 5 people there. There were other people running for those crates as well. There were other people running like headless chickens. It was chaos. Chaos incarnate. People were running for each crate. People were competing for the right to pick up the crate. Random people and us people in the party, because everyone needed 8 out of 8 chests. You could not complete the quest without bringing back 8 to the quest giver. It just wasn't working out. And once a certain amount of people, like all 8 chests are gone, now you have to be eyeing out the location to get to know when it will respawn, or hopefully wait for the respawn timer to tick, and then those eight crates reappear again, and then guess what, we are running like headless chickens again. This particular design of random item drops, or in this particular case random spawns of items to collect, is just not good enough. Most of these things would be blasted blasted to hell and back in a single player game, but it's MMOs, so some of these rules are not so heavy-handedly criticized. I honestly don't know why. But like I said, chaos incarnate, running around trying to get these crates. In the end, it's these sort of item drop mechanics, and this is just one particular example. I am sure if you talk to any Warcraft player, they will tell you, whether it be dungeon, raids, daily quests, normal quests, beginner quests, there's a lot of competition between groups. There's a lot of singularity. You yourself, you have to be a part of the team, but at the same time you always have to look out for your own best interests. Now I was running around by myself. I didn't care about my friends, I didn't care we were in a party, and I didn't care about the random people who I didn't know also running for those crates. I was now playing by myself. It was these kinds of mechanics even many years ago that broke up many groups, many guilds, many parties broke up because people wanted to test their own luck at these item drops, because chances are the more numbers you are, even though this may be one basic example, the more numbers you are, the harder it became to get the particular item that you wanted. Blizzard was forcing players to redo the same section over and over and over again in hopes to get that one particular item. Like I said, people are persistent. Quests are meant to be finished if you want to progress throughout the story. And even if the item is there, this X particular item is there, you now have to compete amongst the people who helped you to obtain it for the right to loot the item. Literally, guilds broke up because of this, until of course some people built friendships over this, I guess. But it's really an item drop system that caused a little bit of chaos. But as time went on, I guess Blizzard might have caught up with this and introduced what they now call the need and greed system. The need and greed system works in some particular portions of the game. I'm not too sure as to when it which areas exactly, but I know for sure raids and dungeons, you go in there and let's just say there's a quest within a dungeon. You are supposed to collect such and such different things, maybe 5 of this, 5 of that, one weapon, maybe there are some sets of armor, some sets of weapons within this one particular dungeon. You go in as a party. There are different parties doing this dungeon at the same time, but these objectives are for you and your party. You don't care about all the random people, that's their business. There's a boss at the end of the dungeon as well who has potential item drop rewards. You go in there and there's individual items drop as you progress. You and your teammates have this option appear to you. A certain item has dropped. Do you need this item? Needing an item means that this item is literally advantageous to your class, like it's something your class actually needs to progress, it's something your class needs to become better. And greeding it means that you just want this item for the sake of having this item. It has no real use, you're just greeding it. Maybe you're just gonna sell it, maybe you're gonna keep it, maybe you don't even need it, but that's the system. And then once everyone has selected whether they need or greed the said items that are dropping, the computer or the system itself tries to evaluate who will get which item. But still, you can already see the problem. If everyone needs an item or everyone greeds an item, or maybe there are mixed amounts of needs and greeds, in the end you still might not get. The chances are still against you because you have 4 other party members and yourself. The chance that you will get this item is, for example, 1 out of 5. That's already poor statistics for yourself. That's what, 20%. The problem now comes in, okay, fine. I have gone through this dungeon, we have needed and greeded, and some people got what they wanted, some people didn't get what they wanted. Then the final boss comes. We work together to defeat the final boss. The boss drops an amazing weapon and a set of armor. Now we have to compete through ourselves who will take the item, who has the right to loot the boss. Literally frustration incarnate right there. Here's a silly example. 2 of my friends were playing World of Warcraft, and then as they were questing together, they got the chance to acquire a mount. A mount was a random gift that they were given. Now this was I believe it was some form of dragon mount, and one of my friends was like, oh man, I've always wanted this mount, like throughout the time. That's the reason why I did this quest. I heard that there's a chance that this mount might drop and it's very rare. And then one guy was like, oh, I've got a lot of dragon mounts, this could finish my collection of dragon mounts. And he managed to persuade the other guy that, okay, fine, I will just collect this item, and then I will trade you back with another mount that I probably have a duplicate of that is more rare than this one. And guess what? He took the dragon mount. Now the other guy was sad. He completed the quest, he put in hard work, he never even got the item because they had to compete over the item drop. And in the end, his friend duped him and he never got the item. Literally friendship broken. Literally hatred born over a mount. You can look at this system from however you want to look at it. But before I even continue on my notes as to what's going on with this item drop system, one thing you have to understand about Blizzard is this, and MMORPGs in general. There are restraints to making MMORPGs. These games are high risk, high reward games. People need a lot of capital to make MMOs, to establish servers, to establish player bases, marketing. All those things require a lot of capital, and investors need a big return. You cannot put in a lot of money and put in a lot of work and risk an MMO game that you're making to fail, because you will kill yourself financially. Now, you have to understand this. Blizzard is a company. They are developers. They probably in their hearts want to make the best game they can make, but there are business perspectives that have to be realized. Business trumps passion no matter what. Money is money. Money is the reason they wake up in the morning and go to that office to make new content. Now, you may take that with a grain of salt. It may make you sad, but that's the honest truth. In the end, it's about getting your paycheck and living your life. That's what business is, making profit. They are in the business to make a profit. As it currently stands with World of Warcraft, Blizzard is not 100% not in the game of making or developing the best game they can potentially make. They are in the business of making the most profitable game that they can make. That's my point of view. You can look at it in your own point of view as well, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Now that people think I'm just blasting World of Warcraft to hell and back, I'm just talking trash about the game, you have to understand this. Like I've been reiterating time and time again, item drops are rewards from developers to players to reward them for achieving or following set rules and understanding the game. You are rewarding people for learning your game. You're saying thank you for your time and effort in understanding and liking this game. Take this. It will help you, or it will make you feel happy. It's cosmetic or something. It's here's a toy, here's a hat. But now you have to understand this. In terms of World of Warcraft, keeping item drop rates low encourages people to play the same quests or play the same areas over and over again. What does that make you think about? If item drop rates are low, chances are there's two things will happen. Maybe there are more things, but two main things will happen. It's either this player will continue and persist to improve his skill to get this particular item, which will guarantee that he subscribes for the next month and pay another $15, or he'll just quit. He'll just get burnt out. There are a lot of World of Warcraft players who actually don't play World of Warcraft anymore, or are not, like, they've just left their account stagnate because of the fact that they're just burnt out on grinding. That's just the hard reality of it is. No, of the situation. So chances are, if you truly really want that thing, you're going to have to keep on going month after month, payment after payment, increasing Blizzard's bank account. But I'm not blasting Blizz. That's just how life is. That's just business right there. But changes have been made. Some things have been put in place to combat these things. There are some good things about it. The thing is now, some of these things over the past couple of years and even recently, some of these things, like I'm saying, there are some fixes to some of these problems that I'm telling you, and some fixes are in the works. They are literally close, well, not 100%, but close to 100% for like some of the story-based things, like for you to understand the complete story, except for some parts of the game. Some of the quest-driven items for you to progress in the story are almost 100%. They've implemented some smart respawn timers on some quest items when they, like for example, those chests, even though it's still better to do it solo and just disband your team. But there have been some improvement on smart respawn timers, smart spawns for enemies, just general efficiency has been increased within the grind aspect of the game. There have been improvements within the dungeon looting system. There have been a few improvements when it comes to raids, but even players are now finding abuses to raids. I'll put a link in the description when talking about the current raiding situation and how people are trading their loots and treasures for different currencies. People are abusing the currencies in the game for their said items that they require, because the systems in raids, currently speaking, is abusable, which is bad. But they're trying to fix these things. Blizzard has acknowledged that there is a problem, and they're trying, well, I hope they're trying to fix it. And well, I guess that's pretty much it. They really are working. People have noted that Blizzard is working hard, and with the new expansion Waters of Draenor they've just put in, they've increased more content, and you know, players are happy. There's more content, the servers are packed, people are playing, new bloods coming in, that community is expanding, and Blizzard is making more profit. There, I actually said something nice for once in my life. God damn it. But that goes out the window again when it talks to boss fights in raids, boss fights in dungeons. These have been problems that have been there since the dawn of time, fighting for who loot the boss. Even in raids, high level raids, these problems are still persistent and haven't been addressed. They're just using different ways to mask the problem. For example, people may say that the acquisition rate of currency for that you get from raids is not high enough, hence why people have to go on multiple raids over and over and over again to get enough currency to be efficient, to be an efficient trade amongst players then. And then someone might argue that, oh no, there are not enough daily quests, and daily quests give a lot of gold, so the developers will be like, okay, let's increase the number of daily quests to increase the potential amount of currency that players can use, but then now let's decrease the number of raids so that people don't have to go on raids all the time. So people are like, yay, I'm not raiding all the time, and yay, daily quests are giving more gold, but no, I can't really fight the boss as many times as I would want in the raid, and no, I don't get the item drop, so I'll have to do more daily quests to get more money and potentially go buy the item I need. So you're just masking the problem in different ways. You're just shifting it over from one problem being in one department to just another department, but the problem is still there. I'm personally not a World of Warcraft fanatic. I do not know the exact details, but I'm sure people who play World of Warcraft understand the bad things that are there currently. And if you are a World of Warcraft player, please in this description list all these things, because I personally don't know them intricately, but I'm sure you do. Write them down, and it's literally it. But I do not want to be talking about World of Warcraft for the rest of my life. Let me just end this particular video in talking about two particular games that I liked. Well, there's more than two games that I like, but these are two examples of games that I believe had somewhat of an item drop system that had flaws but was really done well. Now, talking about item drop systems that I actually do like, I'm sure by now you'd have guessed it, I'm a big fan of the Soul series item drop systems, and the nice thing about them, before we even get to the details or just a few things as we round up this video, one thing we have to understand is that even there, like I said, there is no best item drop system. Even they are flawed in their ways, but they have flaws that I can accept, or flaws that we can work around with. Because fair and fine, like we discussed about World of Warcraft, the developers indirectly gave ways to play the games effectively, but playing a game effectively is not the same as playing the game in a fun way. Those are kind of two different things. Now, if we look at a game like Demon's Souls drop rate system was just fun. It's very simple to understand, and I'm going to explain it to you guys now. Picture this. Each item in the game, or each enemy within the game, has a set possibility or a set probability to drop a specific item. Each different enemy has different items that they could potentially drop, and then there are specific items that have like 100% chance loot rate. Like if you kill a specific monster, you will 100% get this item. And then of course there are items that you get from crates and NPCs. Though you've got a large variety of items that you can work with, some random, some not. That's all fair and fine. You get a taste of both worlds. And then now what you can do is to increase your item discovery, or the chances of you discovering an item. You have to shift the tendency of the world you are going into. For example, if you go into a particular area, by default chances are it's neutral. Killing bosses will shift the world tendency of an area towards white. If you shift the world tendency towards white, the enemies get easier. Well, not easier, but not easier in the sense that they you have more health and you do ridiculous amounts of damage to them, but they rebalance the stats such that the enemies are still smart, they still have good AI, but their damage to you towards you is not as great as when it was neutral, slightly reduced in a way. There are mechanics towards how white world tendencies work, and when this is like this, you've cleared the boss, the area is much more safer to encompass. So all in all, the experience is a little bit better, it's a little bit easier. It's not exactly easy mode. I am no big fan of easy modes in games, and white world tendency is not an easy mode. The reason why I say this is because to achieve white world tendency, you would have to already have cleared and struggled through the area and defeated the boss. But I digress, that's not really the whole point. The downside is to making things easier is that item drop rates do not improve. Now someone might ask, okay fine, how do you improve item drop rates then in Demon Souls? You have to shift the world tendency towards black. How do you do that? You can do that by either killing NPCs. Killing NPCs of course makes the game even much harder, because some of these NPCs have information for you that you could use to progress through the game. Some of these NPCs might be merchants, sellers, blacksmiths, which of course help you progress your character in the game by buying equipment and improving the equipment. And of course other ways of shifting the world towards black world tendency besides killing NPCs is killing yourself when you're not in body form. All in all, what black world tendency does is like it steps up the difficulty of the game. The enemies start doing more damage, the enemies start having more HP, the enemies start becoming more aggressive. So to increase item drop discovery rates, you are organically making the game harder by making the enemies that drop the items become harder to kill. Amazing. Like literally that to me is fun. It's like it's not a matter of okay, I'm in farm mode, pew 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 pew, kill wave, pew 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 pew, kill next wave, pew 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 pew, kill wave, get item, go back, reset, farm mode, pew pew. You know what I mean? When I picture farm mode in some games that I play, it's just a matter of put some music on, sit back, relax, we are gonna be doing this for hours. But then with something like Demon Souls, if you really want to get the item that you want, you really have to work hard for it now, because now the game has stepped up a notch. You now need to be awake, you need to be alert to the things that are happening to you. Of course there were some controversies here and there. For example, Demon Souls with the sharp blade stone. If ever you wanted to max out the progression path of a sharp weapon, you needed the sharp blade stone. Now the sharp blade stone dropped from a rare skeleton that spawned in the Shrine of Storms at black world tendency, and then the rare stone itself is very rare. So the monster is rare and the stone is rare, i.e. lots of farming coming ahead. Things like that, they're iffy. Lots of people didn't like it, hence why they changed it in Dark Souls 2, not in Dark Souls 2, in Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2, whereby, for example, the last spawning enemy of a particular type, if it's the last spawn, it will guarantee and drop you the specific item that it carries. If not, in the case of Dark Souls, there's infinite amounts of spawns, and just generally the drop rates are better. And of course, to max out weapons in Dark Souls, it's easier because all the ingredients, all the final pieces to upgrade are all commonly accessible. It's just a matter of going and killing the monster that has it. Fair and fine, the item, for example, the Titanite slab in Dark Souls 1 may be hard to farm in the sense that the slab has a low drop rate, but the enemies that contain the slab that you can kill are always there. So they improved upon this with later iterations of the game, so kudos to them. From Software doing something nice. And finally, as just another last entry into this RNG thing, another system that I liked is, again, back to Final Fantasy IX. The reason why I like Final Fantasy IX's drop system is not because it really was difficult or intricate. It was very basic. Different enemy types drop different items. It was very simple. But the nice thing about it is that they tied in item drops from battles with item drops from their card games and items drops from chocobo hunting. Now people might be like, oh, what the hell is chocobo hunting? Well, the thing is, you take a chocobo, your little bird, and you go to a specific grid on the map, and then you start digging and hopefully getting treasure. You have different resources to dig in different places, and you have timed. You can't just stay there and dig forever. And so each expedition has different results. You might get some good items, you might get some bad items, you might not get anything at all. And then they tied that, like the item drop, discovering the randomness of some items that you probably failed to get in fights or steal in fights, you can potentially get in the chocobo hunting and chocobo gathering minigames. Now then, also there was a card game system similar to most famous card game. Think of any card game in your head, whatever, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dungeons and Dragons. It's not the same thing, but it's the same concept of competitive card games. You have your deck, the enemy player has his deck, and then you're playing it out with these cards to win. So now you could potentially, for example, you're out in the open and you're battling some Marlboro King or something. He has a chance to actually drop the Marlboro King card, and you can use this card in the card game, the card mini game. And then in the card mini game you might win a tournament, and then you get some money, and then another sword, for example, as a rare item drop. Like, you won this tournament, here's a sword and some money that you failed to get within a particular fight. It's so interwoven. All the mini games and the main battle systems work hand in hand to assist each other within the random drops of the game. It's literally so much fun. You just have to play it. There's just no other way. But anyway, before I bore people to sleep, thanks for watching, people. That's pretty much my take on RNG and how it is in games. Of course, there's a lot to talk about, but then due to the restraints of time, this video is already so long, I need to end it. So thanks for watching. For those people who've been listening so far, you are the best. For those who left in the beginning but then came back in the end, well, at least you came back, so you are the best. If you're not listening, then you won't hear me say this. I hate you.